Hi, I'm Patrick, aka Pharangian. This video is about building a 4-in-1 side onto a round chainmail base section with different size rings. This video is a supplement for my book, Chainmail Bottle Carriers, a healthy fashion statement you can make. There's a lot of information in the book that's not included in this video. If you own the book, this video will help make one of the more complicated bits easier to understand. Hopefully it helps you with your own chainmail adventures, even if you don't have the book. Our bottom section uses 16 gauge, 1/4 inch rings. If you've got the book, you already have the instructions to make this part. We will be using 16 gauge 5/16 inch rings to build our sides. This is a challenge because we will be connecting 40 rings to 25 rings. Theoretically, you can use the same technique with rings of other sizes, as long as the rings have a relatively similar aspect ratio. You can also adapt this process to different numbers of rings, as long as you can divide both groups of rings by the same number. For instance, both 25 and 40 are divisible by 5. You could adapt the technique to situations where the math isn't so nice, but you'll need to work out the details on your own. Here is our bottom section with 40 rings on the outer row. I've also included a couple of the side rings that we'll be using. As you can see, the side rings are larger than the bottom rings. That's our problem. If you had the same number and size of rings, you could just start up some straight sides. But that makes a more curved bottom. For this project, we're going for a flatter bottom, so we use different sizes and numbers of rings. We also have to do math. Remember, I will be describing the process for the bottle carrier in my book. If you're working on your own project, some of the details may vary. 25 and 40 are both divisible by 5, so we will be connecting groups of 5 rings to groups of 8 rings. If you're building the carrier from the book, go ahead and open 25 16 gauge 5/16 inch rings and get out some rubber rings for the second row. To start, pick 2 rings on the outer row of your base. Slide a 5/16 inch ring through them and add 2 rubber rings. You'll see why in a minute. Close the ring. From here I tend to work left to right. If you want to work right to left, you'll be reversing some directions. Now, pass a 5/16 inch ring through the next 2 open rings on the base. Don't include either of the rings on the base that you attached the first side ring to, but you will connect this ring to the closest rubber ring. Add another rubber ring and close the ring. For the third ring, pass through the rubber ring you just added, the farthest right base ring you attached the last side ring to, and the open base ring next to it. Add a rubber ring and close. We do the same thing for the fourth ring. Pass through the rubber ring you just added, the farthest right base ring you attached the last side ring to, and the open base ring next to it. Add a rubber ring and close. For the fifth ring of the set, we pass through the rubber ring and the next 2 open rings of the base. Don't connect to the base rings you connected the last side ring to. Add a rubber ring and close. Okay, we've just connected our first 5 side rings to 8 rings on the base. The first side ring went through the first 2 base rings. The second, third, and fourth side rings went through rings 3, 4, 5, and 6 of the base. And side ring 5 went through the 7th and 8th rings of the base. We've also connected 6 rubber rings that are the beginning of the second row of the side. We're adding those now because you can't really add them to a closed ring. The remaining 4 sets of 5 follow the same basic pattern, but there are 2 exceptions. The first exception is that for the remaining sets, we're passing the first ring through the last rubber ring we added, and only adding 1 new rubber ring. You are still connecting to the next 2 open rings on the base, so really the first ring in the remaining sets is like the last ring in the first set. The other exception is the very last ring of the last set. For this one, we don't add any new rubber rings. Instead, we connect to the rubber ring we just added and the loose rubber ring on the first ring we added. Make sure the loose rubber ring is turned so it meshes with the pattern. If it's off, the pattern will look off. And there you have it, a 16 gauge 1/4 inch ring base with 40 rings attached to a 16 gauge 5/16 inch side with 25 rings. As I said up front, you can play with the numbers of rings as long as you have at least one common divisor. You can also play with different gauges and sizes of rings, but you need to experiment a little on your own here. I'm not going to predict the effects for all possible combinations. I'm Patrick, aka Pharangian. You can find other useful videos on my YouTube channel. I'll add new ones from time to time. You can also get information on my books and other things I'm into at my blog, wordsmeanstuff@wordpress.com.